So we're back. What we're going to do now is I'm going to go over a couple things, how this thing works. I've been going through the service data, how this hybrid vehicle works. And then we'll plug the Autel scan tool back in. We're going to clear all these faults out because there's a lot of history codes, continuous memory codes, which are the CMDTC's, continuous memory diagnostic trouble codes, a lot of low battery voltage codes, but we got it all charged back up. So we'll clear everything out and see what comes back. I expect that PAT security thing to come back. So what we'll do is see what, there's an update. I can do that later. So basically, I've been doing a bunch of research on this. So this thing right here, like I said, is the DC-DC direct current converter. Because the battery in the back of this thing is 330 volts DC. Well, this DC-DC converter reduces it down to 14.3 or 14.5 for the vehicle to use. Anytime you have an orange cable on these, that's your high voltage, which is your HV, meaning high voltage. Goes into your transmission. There's the inverter in there and the modules in there. And inside that transmission, there's two electric motors. Well, one's a generator, actually. There's a generator, and then there's a drive motor. There's the drive motor that drives the car, between that and the engine, or a combination, or just one or the other, the engine or the drive motor. And then there's the generator, which charges the whole thing, which charges the batteries and all that stuff. And on some vehicles they use, and it may be this one, I'll have to look, that they actually use that generator motor to start the engine as well, because it can move clockwise and counterclockwise as well as the actual drive motor. So yeah, that's basically how this thing works. Now we're going to plug the Autel back in and go through these fault diagnosing. But right here on the wiring diagram, just going to give you an overview. You got your traction battery control module, your contactor control circuit, that's in the back in the trunk. There's a big orange plug. Then you got your high voltage wires here, orange, going to your transaxle control module. And then you got your DC-DC converter module. Here's your high voltage, positive and negative. And then on the other diagrams for your transaxle control module, you got your high speed can, low, or your high speed can, positive and negative, can high, can low, your powers and grounds, which we have all that because we do have communication. So all that tells me all that wire integrity is good. So let's go ahead and hook up the Autel again. All right, got the Autel plugged in. Doing a full system scan right now. Battery's charged back up. Key on, engine off. You can see the security light there, bottom left there. So we'll see what our results are from this once it's done scanning. All right, so we'll hit report here. Got a bunch of codes in the modules. The PCM battery voltage is low. Yeah, bunch of voltage low. High voltage on the TCM interlock circuit. Theft detected. Yeah, generator shutdown. We're gonna go ahead and clear all these because we had a bunch of battery voltage low codes. We'll clear these and then rerun diagnostics. So I cleared everything. Let's see what came back. P1000 means it hasn't done all of its tests for the engine, which you expect. Oh, here we go. TCM P1260 Foxtrot. Theft detected, vehicle mobilized. Yeah, so there is a problem. That's why that PAT system is having this, or won't let this vehicle to start. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to try to crank it again. Nothing. Want to rescan it one more time and go from there. All right, so I rescanned it again after I recycled the key. So the P1000 still, and then we got a P1 Alpha 10002B hybrid powertrain control module, battery disabled. That's the main battery, that big battery in the back, it looks like. It's the theft one still there. And there's the instrument cluster one, or invalid data, the U251060. Battery control module, battery energy control module. Again, back it's in the PAT. So now we're going to go see what we need to do from here. All right, so after doing some more research with this vehicle here, if you go to the service data for the Escape Hybrid, so we have a PATS issue here. I'm going to try to find where I was reading at. So the passive anti-theft system PATS on the hybrid version consists of the following components: anti-theft indicator, which is located in the instrument cluster; encoded ignition integrated key head transmitter, IKT, PATS keys. The key contains the transponder and the remote keyless entry transmitter. Encoded, the key contains a transponder, ignition PATS key, not factory equipped, but can be used in place of the keys, PATS receiver, instrument cluster, and transmission control module. Well, the transmission they put from the junkyard, they never swapped the modules from the old transmission to this one, or all the inverter and modules under there. I guess you could have, but if you keep reading here, PATS uses a radio frequency identification technology to deter a drive-away theft. Passive means that it does not require any activity by the user. The vehicle is equipped with 2 IKT PATS keys. It goes over all that, but what I'm looking at down here, so right here, passive anti-theft system PATS function. Note, if the instrument cluster or the TCM or both is replaced, the parameters must be reset in both modules or the vehicle experiences a PATS no start. Refer to passive anti-theft parameter reset in this section. So what they mean, I mean really the TCM was replaced because it's in a different transmission. So that's why it tells you right here that if the IC instrument cluster or the TCM or both, in this case just the TCM is replaced, the parameters must be reset in both modules. Well, if you're using the Ford IDS scan tool, the instrument cluster and the TCM parameters are reset at the same time. Now, we're not using the Ford scan tool IDS, but we're using Ford software, right? So it's the same exact stuff. We're using Ford's version 7.51. Already verified all that. And even tells in here, or capable scan tool. So the PATS function is controlled by the instrument cluster. The IC instrument cluster is used to carry out all the PATS functions, such as receiving an identification code from the PATS key, controlling the electronically controlled continuously variable transmission, ECVT, and fuel injectors enable. Because of the interaction between the IC instrument cluster and the TCM transmission control module, there are parameters that must be set if the IC or TCM or both is replaced. Refer to passive anti-theft system parameter reset in this section. If any of these components are not working correctly, the vehicle does not start, and it's exactly what we have going on. If the instrument cluster must be replaced for any reason, PATS concerns or IC concerns, the PATS keys must be pre-programmed into the new IC. Refer to integrated transmitter key programming using this equipment. It says, you know, how when it's active, blah, blah. But if you PATS disables the vehicle from starting if there's a damaged IC, damaged TCM, and maybe we have a damaged one, but I believe that we don't. We have an issue with the the transmission module in here is not matching the IDs of the instrument cluster up there. So if you go back and read here, passive anti-theft system reset, it shows you, I gotta find it again here. Passive anti-theft system PATS reset, system reset, parameter reset. It says vehicle communication module and integrated IDS software system. That's the Ford stuff with appropriate hardware or equivalent scan tool, which we're using the Autel. So we can do with the Autel. Note, a minimum of 2 passive anti-theft PATS keys must be programmed into the instrument cluster to complete this procedure and allow the vehicle to start. So it's basically turn off the key from off to on, follow these instructions, select parameter reset. Note, if the IC or IC and the PCM are replaced, updated, or reconfigured, follow steps 4 through 9. All vehicle keys are erased during the parameter reset procedure. Verify that at least 2 keys are available prior to carrying out the PATS parameter reset. If only the PCM was replaced, go to step 9. So it tells you how to do it all. So now if you go into scan tool and go to the instrument cluster, it should tell us how many keys in here are programmed. So when this pulls up, we're in the instrument cluster. Find that's a high energy volt. Here we go. Minimum of keys required 2. Number of keys stored 7. So it needs minimum 2. There's 7 stored. Whoever had the vehicle several times has 7 keys in there. We just only have 1. We are trying to get another one, so we can do this. And then if you go back, once this catches up here, exit out of the diagnosis part, go to service, go to body, security. We're going to go to PATS, passive anti-theft functions, turn ignition on, which it is. This procedure will take 10 minutes. You wish to continue? Yes. So this is going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while it goes through, try to gain security access, and then we'll go from there. All right, it says operation progress. This operation has been successful. Hit OK. And then see what it says. Security access granted. It literally took 10 minutes. So you got program additional key in here. You might have to do that if you can't find another key. Ignition key code erase. Customer spare key program and enable. Customer spare program and disable. That's the manual way of doing it. This is the scan tool way of doing it. Parameter reset. Unlimited key mode off. Unlimited key mode on. Program and unlimited key code. So you want to go to parameter reset. So here's the warning. You will need 2 keys to start the vehicle if you have replaced the passive anti-theft system, instrument cluster, or VIC, virtual image cluster, or hybrid electrical cluster module. Do you wish to continue? So I'm going to hit no for now, just to make sure. I want to see if the customer has another key. It doesn't say anything about the TCM you need 2 keys for, but I do want to make sure, because when I go into this, I gotta find it again, the parameter reset, I just want to have an extra key in case it erases them right away like the service data says. But it only says that for instrument cluster PCM, so maybe it won't, but I still want to make sure I have that just in case, because all vehicle keys are erased during the parameter reset procedure. So that tells me I need 2 keys. Make sure 2 keys are available to carry out the path reset. So, yeah, I'm going to look here. So if you go to pre-program program keys, see what this one shows here. If you go to the hit no for this, because I might erase the keys. I'm not sure if it's just for the TCM. I just want to have 2 just in case. So say they don't have a spare key, we could program using the equivalent scan tool. This procedure is used when a customer needs to have an additional key programmed into the vehicle without erasing stored keys, but does not have 2 program keys. You just got to make sure it's mechanically cut right. And it tells you to go program additional key with the scan tool, which is where we're at. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look for, see if we get an additional key. And what we can do is we can do the parameter reset, which should allow the TCM to communicate with the instrument cluster, because that's where the keys are going through on these hybrids. Use the instrument cluster and the TCM, transmission control module, to allow this vehicle to start, since it's a hybrid. We can program it that way. I mean, the other way we could do it is pull the guts out of this transmission, which takes time and labor, and put the other stuff in. But we'll try to find another key and then go from there. So I do want to add, you can see the security light there flashing. And it's going to flash until we set the parameters and put the other module back in. All right, so I did some more research. We do not need 2 keys to program this TCM to the instrument cluster. Or not, it's not actually programming, we're just doing the parameter reset. I guess you can consider it a type of programming. But the keys are programmed into the instrument cluster on these hybrids, and other vehicles as well for these Fords, I'm sure. But for the TCM to communicate with the instrument cluster, we got to do a parameter reset. No, we don't need 2 keys. The individual that has this vehicle, we reach out to him. He does not have 2 keys anyways. If he needs another one, we can program it with the AUTEL, but we don't need it. Now, if we're replacing the instrument cluster, we would, or the PATS module, then you would need that actual 2 keys. So now we're gonna go to service. We got key on, engine off, got a battery charger tender on there because the battery on this thing's really weak. We're gonna go to body, security. We got 12.7 volts, we're good. PATS functions, key on, 10 minutes, operation in progress. So I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to watch all this. We're going to get gaining security access. We'll get access and we'll go from there. Alrighty, so I moved the scan tool in the vehicle here. It's almost done. We'll do this parameter ID reset between the TCM and the instrument cluster, but I honestly think there's something else going on too. But we'll get it reset here and rescan everything and try to start it, rescan everything and see what happens. But again, I think there's something else going on with this vehicle in regards to this no crank, no start. So let this finish up here. 600 seconds, which is 10 minutes, almost done to gain security access. It says operation progress. This operation has been successful. Hit OK. Security access granted. Okay. Go to parameter reset. Gives you a warning. It says you will need 2 keys to start the vehicle if you have replaced the PATS, which we did not, the instrument cluster, which we did not, the VIC virtual image cluster, we did not, or the HEC hybrid electrical cluster, which we did not. So if we replace one of those, you need the 2 keys, but we didn't replace those, so we only need the 1 key. We're not erasing the ignition keys. So hit yes to continue. Turn the ignition on, which it is. 6 seconds, operation progress. This operation has been successful, so we're going to hit OK. It says operation successful, module reset is now complete. So hit OK. Then we're going to escape out of this. Right now the instrument cluster is nothing on there. Hit escape. We're not going to turn it off yet. We're going to watch the instrument cluster. The speedometer, odometer, all that, not odometer, speedometer and the RPM gauge should flutter a little bit. Once I hit OK. There it's fluttering. Lights coming on. That means it's taking its parameter IDs. All the gauges move. So we'll let it sit there for a little bit. And then we'll back out of the scan tool some more. And then what we got to do now is turn the key off. And then we got to try to start it. But nothing. Which I kind of figured, because I think there's another issue. We know our security light's not there no more. So now let's go to diagnosis, do a full system scan, go from there. So I did a full system scan. See what we got in here now after we programmed it. We got PCM battery energy control module A performance, the P1000 we don't care about, and then hybrid battery or hybrid powertrain control module battery disabled. Lost communication with ECM, PCM for the APIM, don't care about that one. BCM, the battery control module, code there. But no security light. You go to the transmission module, go to read codes, continuous memory codes. Before we had fault codes in here. No fault codes, so that's good. So that tells me that parameter IDs took. Now let's go to key on, engine off, on demand codes and see what we have from there. So this vehicle must be prepared for read codes. Do not activate switches. Make sure it's not moving. Should be in park and the parking brake on. So it's in park. Parking brake on. Hit OK. So let's see what codes come up from this. So no fault codes there either. So that's good. We have nothing in the TCM. Before we had those codes. So that took the IDs with the scan tool, but it's still not starting. Let's go to the instrument cluster. Read the codes, because these are the two that I got to communicate. Still reading. It's reading, but it's doing its self-check now. That's the scan tool doing all that. Doing a self-check on the instrument cluster. Lights are back on. No fault codes. So let's back out of all this again. No security light on. But it still won't start. Reset the key. Or recycle the key. Nothing. I'm going to back out of all this and rescan for codes and see what we have. Still scanning. I'm going to pause it here. So what I care about is that there's, let's look here, the PCM, the battery energy control module still, the hybrid control module battery disabled, the APIM, BCM battery control module. But anyways, there's no codes again in the TCM. We'll make sure here. But in the security light's gone now. So why is it not starting? So I'm thinking we have another issue with this vehicle. No fault codes. Let's look at the instrument cluster. No, it says no fault codes. Let's do its self-check again. So it'll do its nice fancy dash check there with the instrument cluster when it communicates with the vehicle. So it's doing its self-check. And again, remember the instrument cluster has to communicate with the transmission control module for this thing to be able to, you know, start. Actually crank over and start. No fault codes. So, why isn't it starting now? That's why I think we have another issue we need to address. So, it's still not starting. I'm going to go ahead and do an auto scan one last time because I cycled the key, I don't know, 5 to 7 times back and forth. I want to see what codes are in there now, and we'll go from there. We're scanning it still. And let me pause it, because that's all I need for data. Again, let's look at the engine one. And I'm wondering if this is where problem is at, perhaps. Because key on engine off, of course your OBD light, your engine light's going to be on because that means the computer's alive for your PCM, but we have no security light now. So we fixed that. That means, tells me that the instrument cluster and the TCM are communicating. But we still have a no crank. Or if it's something to do with this hybrid battery in the back, or if the mechanic screwed something else up, because there's a lot of, I mean, from part one, there's a lot of stuff that he did not do correctly, or if when they took it to the dealer, if they screwed something up trying to program it, or who knows what those guys did. So we got to figure out, kind of go backwards and see what's going on here. So this isn't the engine computer. You got battery energy control module A performance, the P1000 we don't care about. Then you got a hybrid powertrain control module battery disabled, and then a battery energy control module A performance. So, and maybe that's what we have going on there. If you go back, look at the TCM. Again, no codes, no engine light, or not no engine light, no security light. Go to read codes, continuous memory, and see what she says here. Once it pulls up, again, no fault codes in there. Let's look at the instrument cluster one more time. It's going to do its self-checks again. We'll wait for that, see what comes up from this. Again, no fault codes. And still no security light, so that's good. Still no security light. I'm doing one last full scan. I say it's one last full scan, but we got 3 in the PCM, 1 in the APIM, 1 in the heat and ventilation. So the battery energy module control performance 1 and the hybrid powertrain control module battery disabled. And that may have something to do with this. I got to get the service data and look. The APIM is a lost communication with the ECM/PCM module A. Not concerned with that one. And the heater and ventilation is the front blower motor pulse width modulation. Circuit open or short of the ground. Doesn't matter for what we're doing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go research these other codes. See why it won't still crank and not start. But it looks like the TCM and the instrument cluster are communicating well. Like I said, maybe there's an issue with the one that the mechanic put in there. Who knows? Or maybe, I don't know if you got the wrong data from it, or when you grab the transmission, I'm not sure. Or maybe when they took it to the local dealer mounthome, they did something there. So maybe there's a CAN bus issue or something, but we got to go through that and continue to troubleshoot. So I did, I'll show you here what I did actually. I went to, once it comes up here, went to service, and I went to powertrain, reset keep alive memory, PCM, reset cam, keep alive memory will clear the learn values in the PCM, has stored it for adaptives such as idle and fuel, so yes. But when I do this, it says test is not complete, switch it ignition off. Then I can turn it back on, key on, engine off, and then my security light flashes. Like there's a security issue. So then if I go back and go to diagnosis, the TCM, scan that for codes. While that's scanning for codes, you can see it's still flashing the security light. So we reset the cam. No fault codes in the TCM, which I didn't expect, but if you go to the instrument cluster, do that read codes, it's going to go through its self-checks. So it's doing its self-checks. And I expect there to be a code in here. And it does pull up. And there is CAN controller area network communication fault U251160. Well, I know that if the TCM and instrument cluster cannot communicate on that network, it will not, it won't start. It won't crank and it won't start. Now, we can check the CAN bus high and low wires from the instrument cluster to the TCM. But it's weird that when you clear the keep alive memory that it causes that. When before I showed just a little bit ago when I did the relearn from the TCM to the instrument cluster for the parameter resets, basically for the IDs to match, had no issues. So again, I'm gonna look into it some more, troubleshoot it, and we'll go from there. Alrighty, so what I'm gonna do now is, since I reset that keep alive memory, the CAN memory, we had that U code. So what I want to do is cleared all the codes back out. I want to do the security access reset again, parameter reset, and then see if we have the same results we did earlier, where there's, I mean, the whole time now we have no issues with the TCM at all, but I want to make sure we have no issues with the instrument cluster like we did earlier until we cleared the keep alive memory. So we're going to go through that. So we'll do the same process again. It's been successful. Okay. Security access granted. Parameter reset. Same thing. Yes. On. Yes. 6 seconds. Okay. Module reset now complete. Okay. Instrument cluster's blank. Hit escape. Still blank. Hit OK. Watch instrument cluster do its thing. It's relearning this instrument cluster into the transmission, the parameter ID. So because you got to have this instrument cluster and the TCM transmission control module for this vehicle to be able to crank and start, since it is a hybrid. So now, same thing. Turn it off. Turn it on. No start. So now we're going to read. I see the security light on there, but we're going to read codes. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pause this and just pick the modules so it's quicker. Key on, engine off, security lights on this time. Control unit, TCM, recodes continuous memory. Let's see where we're at. No fault codes in the TCM, so that all took. We haven't had any since we've done this. Instrument cluster. Let's do the same thing. Read codes. Yet again, it'll do itself. Test. Let's see what comes from that. It's doing its self-test. Trying to read the data. Still reading the data. No security light, but this time we got the same code, the U code, controller area network communication bus fault, but we also have a B214160. There is no PCM, powertrain control module, identification known to the PATS passive anti-theft module. So we'll just go ahead and look those up. All right, so let's look this up real quick. Let's look up a B2141. And let's see, B2141. Sorry about the camera all over the place. I'm trying to troubleshoot this end film. So we want this one because it's a hybrid. I'm not saying these codes are the issues, but we kind of want to attack this from different angles, see what's going on. So we'll go to find in page, Bravo 2141. Yeah, find in page, Bravo 2141. All right, so right there, Bravo, pinpoint test C, DTC 2141. Normal operation. The transmission control module and the instrument cluster verify corrective passive NFF PATS operation through the controller area network. Can, when the key is turned on the position. B2141 NVM configuration failure sets when the instrument cluster and the TCM IDs have not been set. That's what we did with the scan tool. But there's no code with the TCM. The pinpoint test intended to diagnose the following as instrument cluster. Pinpoint test C. No, when using the integrated diagnostic software, which we're using Autel, the instrument cluster and the TCM parameters are reset at the same time, which is what we did. So step one, reset the instrument cluster and the TCM parameters, which we did. You know, you go to PATS parameter reset. Cycle ignition key several times, cycle the ignition key several times, holding the key in both positions for a minimum of 3 seconds, which we did. After cycling, does the vehicle start? No. If yes, you go there. If no, we go to C2, which it doesn't. Turn the key to the off position for a minimum of 3 seconds. Clear the codes, which we're going to do. Turn the key to the off position for a minimum of 3 seconds. Ignition on, retrieve the DTCs. Is it B2141 retrieved? Yes or no. If it's no, then you go to the other DTCs. If it's yes, verify the TCM calibration is correct for the vehicle by matching the calibration number on the Online Automotive Service Information Systems, OASIS, with as-built data. As-built data is the one that came from the factory. If the calibration is okay, install a new instrument cluster. I don't think that's the issue with the instrument cluster. Maybe perhaps the one they got from the salvage yard has the wrong as-built data. I'm not saying that's the problem, but it's something we need to take note of. So I will go through this and see. But the other code is the U2511. So let me look at that one. Pull up the U2511 here. Want paths for the hybrid. And we want to look for, I'll type it in down here, U2511. So pinpoint test I, DTCs, U0100, 101, and 2511, which we have. So normal operation, the paths uses a visual anti-theft indicator located instrument cluster. Actually, that's not the one I wanted to show you. Hang on. Right here. 2511 CAM data mismatch. Received data does not match as expected, which sets in continuous memory only when the instrument cluster does not receive the expected response from the TCM over the high-speed CAN. The fault may not be present at the time of testing. The data sent by the TCM does not match the data expected by the instrument cluster in the DTC set. This DTC can be caused by the high-speed CAN circuits between the instrument cluster and the TCM, or by either module. This DTC can also be set if the battery voltage is low. So what I want to do is I want to look at that as well, go through the troubleshooting procedures. Might have to hook up an oscilloscope, probably will, to the CAN high and CAN low lines from the instrument cluster to the TCM. If there's an issue with that, or if there's an issue with the instrument cluster that the dealership screwed up, I'm not saying they did or did not, or there's an issue with the module and the transmission from the actual salvage yard. Is the as-built data wrong, or is there something wrong with that? We do have the other module. We can use that as well and test that out. Or is there something else going on? So we'll continue to troubleshoot all that and go from there. So we'll do a little troubleshoot now. We'll have to do the other troubleshooting at another time. It's getting kind of late here. But we'll do the B2141. Take this with a grain of salt, obviously. Carry out the parameter reset. Already done that. Cycle the ignition key several times. We're going to do all this stuff in here and go from there. So I'm cycling the ignition key several times like it tells us in the service data to do. For a minimum of 3 seconds, holding it. Doing all that stuff. Then it says, which it didn't work, so go to C2. Turn the key to the off position for a minimum of 3 seconds. Okay, clear the DTCs. So clear the DTCs there. I already cleared them. So they're cleared. Says turn the ignition on. Key on, or ignition on, engine off. Then retrieve the DTCs. So I got to read codes again. Of course, when it retrieves them, it's going to do its self-check in the instrument cluster again, which it's doing. And we have no fault codes detected, and we have no security light. So that's good news. So the service data shows us, it says, is DTC B2141 retrieved? Yes, then you would do all this. Or no, if there are any other PATS DTCs, which there's not, refer to those charts, which were not, because there isn't any. If there are no PAT DTCs, the PAT system was okay. So that's telling us, yet again, that this whole system between the instrument cluster and the transmission control module took. So I believe there is another issue that we got to troubleshoot with this vehicle. So I did the same test again, and I still get the only code I get now of all of this. TCM has been good the whole time from the programming, is the U251160. The CAN, the controller area network communication bus fault. So I think our next step for the next part of the video is going to be to, we need to check the CAN bus lines, the CAN high, CAN low from the instrument cluster to the transmission, and see if, maybe the mechanic screwed something up. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't, because of all the other stuff he forgot to do, or maybe the dealership screwed something with the instrument cluster, or there's something wrong with the modules in the transmission, like I said. So we'll probably break out this oscilloscope if required to check the CAN high and CAN low, and that should be interesting, and then we'll move on from there. I know I keep saying we're going to move on, but you can see my security lights flashing again. So I'm expecting to have a code here, but if you notice, my battery voltage is way low again because my trickle charger up there is not charging no more. So if it was in the service data here that basically you can also get these U codes, which was find it here, which was the U2511. The U2511, if you have a low battery state of charge, which we do, you can get erroneous codes like that too. We're at 10.04 volts. So yeah, we need to definitely charge that and rerun this diagnostics. I mean, we still may be going down this road to troubleshoot the CAN high, CAN low, but we could be getting that code because of the low battery voltage. So we'll get it all charged back up. Thing actually needs a new battery because you have to keep the trickle charger on all the time, but we'll get all charged up and rerun our diagnostics and probably break out the oscilloscope and go from there.